Thank you for coming, and we appreciate everybody's time. I'm from Georgia Pacific. Just real quick, if you don't know who we are, a lot of the things that are in your house probably could come from us. About 60% of the U.S. has one of our products inside their house. We're most notably for our towel, tissue, and napkin products, but also we do building products. We're the number one maker of plywood in the country, which made me a really popular person over the last couple of years with people, relatives even calling, hey, can you get me some plywood? And it's like, they don't give me a key to the company store, you know. I couldn't even get toilet paper when the toilet paper was out, and we manufacture it. But we have 150 manufacturing facilities, mostly in the U.S., approximately 30,000 employees, and we are located in Atlanta. So a couple of things that we were going to talk about is when you think about environment, social, and governance, I think one of the things that Mark had done and then Paul has taken over is chose some of the panelists because we were specializing in different areas of ESG, right? And I'm aware of environmental because we have a whole lot of mills, right? And so that's part of my job is to look at those and to see about effluents and making sure that we're getting better and better with that. Social is really where my part works because that's really where a lot of the operations happen and a lot of the dealings with our workforce. And so I'm going to talk pretty much in that S category instead of governance or environmental. But a few things about environmental, just from the paper industry. Since the 1950s, we have planted more trees than we've harvested, which is good. It's, you know, in a way, we're kind of lucky that we have a product that we use really the world's most sustainable resource, which is trees. And as long as we're planting at least what we harvest or more, then we can be sustainable from that area of it. We actually, when we harvest these trees, we actually use 100% of the product of those trees. In some situations, we even power our boilers, giant boilers that run the whole factory and the whole mill with bark. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in just a little bit. We also use a lot of water. I don't know, is anybody familiar with paper making? All right, we have a couple of experts in here. Paper making uses a lot of water, a whole lot of water. As a matter of fact, before the fibers become paper, right at that moment, there's probably 98%, 99% water in the mixture and 1% fiber, which is why most of the times you'll see a paper mill located along a river or someplace where there's access to plentiful water. But so we utilize all this water, but we actually only use about this much of it because we clean it and then we put it back to where we found it. All of the time, much cleaner normally than when it came in. So we're in a pretty good industry when it comes to sustainability. There are things that we have to work on. Is this going to work? Well, I thought it would work. I don't think it's working. Sustainable, we have it. In the past, it's not really been one of our core objectives, sustainability, including everything that ESG includes. Paul mentioned the need for gasoline and diesel for employees driving back and forth to the facilities. And a lot of times the paper mill facilities are actually located in the boondocks. That's a southern term, boondocks. Because you need it to be where your raw materials were. And that's not going to be in the middle of a town. It's going to be out. It's going to be in the middle of the forest, right? So that would minimize trucking, but employees have to go back and forth. And so some of these mills have a lot of employees. You know, you could have 1,500, 2,000 employees in some of these mills. But we also have a lot of other facilities that are located closer to town, and there are a lot of the packaging facilities which use the paper that we create in the paper mills to make boxes to send things to your house. So transportation to and from the mill. We also have trucks bringing wood to us, and we have trucks taking the finished product that we've created out of the paper back to our customers. So these are things that we need to work on. I will say this, that since 2013, we've made some capital investments to close 8 of our fossil fuel boilers, and we replaced those with either natural gas or biomass. And what that did is that reduced the amount of energy that was derived from fossil fuels by 73%. So we're quite proud of that. So as I said, I play in the middle. I play generally in the S's here. And there's a couple of things that we have to really realize is that the assets are what the assets are. We were actually in this room yesterday, and somebody was asking about assets, and I said, it's almost like a classic rock radio station where it's the best of the 50s and 60s and 70s all day, right? All weekend long. So that's it is what it is, and these legacy assets dictate the raw materials that are used in our energy profile. So what do? We with these assets that are aging, and if they're not broken, we're not going to replace it because they're very, very expensive. We make a conscious effort to run every facility to its optimal performance, and that can be tricky sometimes. And one of the things that we're working on to help the process continue more unhindered is from artificial intelligence. So in the past, you've had process control, and that's been the same basically since the 70s. And it works, and it works great. But with AI, that we are able to now predict a little closer to if something's going to break. We're also able to predict if the paper going through the machine is going to break. And that saves us from shutting down, losing productivity, having to start back up, and wasting a whole lot of time and a whole lot of employee effort and a whole lot of money. So, when you think about sustainability, it's the company also has to be able to sustain the operations working. And we have to be able to sustain that facility being in business, because if it goes out of business, then none of the other things matter if you're out of business. So when you think about redefining functions and process models, look at what the roles are in the facility. So this is one of the things that we did. It's like what has to be proximal to the facility? What roles and functions have to be there if something breaks? And then what roles can be away from the facility? So this would save what you were talking about earlier, and now we've all learned to work from home a lot better. So this is one of the things that we're going through right now. Who has to be proximal, at least close to the facility? And then who can be away? Now, when you say who can be away, in the past, we had to have 40% of our employees as what we called insurance. So they were insurance, basically there waiting on something to break so that we had enough staff to go fix it and get us back up again, right? So we've become a lot more reliably run. And when you talk about proximal, it's like who needs to be there? Who can work away from the facility? And so 3 years ago, I would say 5 years ago, we developed the first remote control operation for the paper mill as a trial out of the closet on the 18th floor at our headquarters. And we tested with it, and we found out that it works. We can actually control most of the controls from our closet for the paper mill. And this one was in South Alabama, and we were located in Atlanta. So that said, okay. And this kind of goes along with something coming up in a little bit further down. But so we're able to run the process remotely. And sometimes in these giant paper mills, we have in one mill, we have 3 operations control centers. And so if you could take that out of the loop and run it remotely, they don't have to be proximal to the facility. It's almost like, power generation from dams. There's a lot of dams. When we were going through this, we visited several of these. We visited several mines, and mines are also run the same way. You take your operations control center, and it's in one location, and you have 12 mines that are being operated by 6 people in the operations center here. It's the same way with the power generation from dams. In Europe, we saw one facility that ran 15 power generators, dams, facilities. So it's possible. But I will tell you, if anybody has got other facilities that need remote control operations, it's really hard from a change management standpoint, okay? Because your workforce is not going to believe it. And so they didn't believe it so hard that they just basically said, this is not going to work and we're not going to do it. So we tried a little bit better on our change management, and we said, okay, fine. We understand that if you want the control center to be here, and why you want it to be there is in case something happens so you can get there quickly, all right? So what we did is we moved it to the end of the property so they could still run and get to the facility if they needed to, but the facility was still remote, all right? And then later, we moved it a couple of miles down the road, and then we added another mill to it. So sometimes you have to take things in baby steps to make it work. Redefining operational processes. In 2015, I did a study, and Mike Carroll may have talked about this in the previous session because I missed the last part of it. But we did a study, and when you look at our personnel curve, from all of the roles that happen throughout all the facilities in our company, our personnel curve looked pretty much like a bell, except for 45% of those employees by 2023 would be 67 years old or older. So it's 45% of our workforce. And these people have been here for 20, 25, 30 years. Does anybody else have legacy employees like that? Their daddy worked for you and their mama worked for you, right? And so they've been here for 25 and 30 years. They know exactly what's going on with this paper mill. In their area, they are the subject matter experts. So when these people retire, if we don't find a way to capture this knowledge, then we have to replace this subject matter expert with somebody that's just out of school, or somebody that we've stolen from a competitor. There's just not that many competitors around. It's not that big of a business that you can go steal 45% of their employees. So that's not going to happen. So we figured for us to be sustainable here, we have to do something, and it was automation, adding more automation, more areas within the mill. So, and also such that, and you guys may do this that have all these legacy employees, that the employee, the subject matter expert that used to be responsible for this section from here to there, knew every knob that was in there, knew every sound of everything that went on. And if there was a problem, they could tell just by touching it, oh, I can tell this pump's going to go out. Because 5 years ago, it went out when it felt just like this, right? So now we had one subject matter that was responsible from here to there. Now, because of the way that we've automated, we have one subject matter expert that's responsible from here down to the middle of the room, right? So it's not like we've taken away the jobs. It's those jobs were vacated, and we had to find a way to fix that. We had to find a way to continue manufacturing, and so this is what we did, and this is what's working. When you look at the technology, there are a lot of things that we looked at. What is going to be the best thing? And of course, when we started this in 2015, there was no playbook. No, there was no instruction manual as to the best way to go forth and do digital transformation. You know, when we started, we called it digital transformation too. I think a lot of people still do. But what we found is that as soon as you transform one thing, it upsets another. And so we had to go transform that. And then we had to go transform something else down the line. So we just called it transformation. We just dropped the word digital, and it's just transformation, the whole thing, because you're going to have to do everything eventually. But we looked at a lot of the different ways that we could do transformation. And artificial intelligence looked like something that we needed to really go understand. And so we studied and we talked to experts. And we understood mostly, at least what it does. I don't know how to program it, but I understand what it does. Except for, and we talked about this yesterday, if anybody was here, except for traditional AI works on data correlation. This data correlates with this data, so that means there's probably a good probability that this could happen or this could happen. And that's great. That's great, we need that. But what we wanted to add was the knowledge of those people that are leaving. We wanted to be able to add the knowledge of those subject matter experts that know, oh, if this gets to this level on this monitor, then something's going to happen and you need to go fix that. We wanted the human knowledge inside the system as well, right? Anybody ever said, it's like, man, if I just had a clone of me, I could get so much more work done. That's kind of what this is. It's taking the knowledge of those brightest and smartest and best operators that we have and moving it into our workforce ecosystem. And so we had this plan, and we went around and we looked at the biggest AI companies. We looked at the medium size and the smaller size in the Northwest and the Northeast and in Asia and in India. And we found two that said, we're working on something that's close to this, and we want to help you out. And so when I said Rajiv, hold your hand up, Rajiv, he's filling in today. Rajiv's company is the one that we actually found, and they split workforces between the US and in India. So the only problem with working with Rajiv, if you're in charge of this project, is that you have to be on the phone at 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning because of the time change between here and India. But Rajiv's going to come up if we've got questions on the AI stuff. When you look about AI, it's not only just an operational thing, but it also involves what I'm working on for probably 6 months, 8 months down the road to start a trial with, is how do we really work on this connected worker? There's companies out here that tell us, I do this connected worker platform, and company A does a connected worker platform, company B will do a connected, nobody's really the same, which is good because you can get different concepts, but nobody's really doing what I want done. And this is what I mean. Right now, if like some of our facilities, and you guys raise your hand if yours is like this, we give an iPad. And then on this iPad, probably 20, 25 apps, all right? Now, if something goes wrong someplace, one of these apps starts giving an alert. If a work order comes in, the work order app starts giving an alert. If something else is brewing, so now we have alerts going off everywhere. And if you work in a facility or you're in charge of a facility, you know that there's just inherent noise. And I don't mean auditory noise. I mean, there's just inherent noise. There's things going on everywhere to distract you. And now you've got these 25 apps that are going off. How do you prioritize what it is that you've got to do? There's no way that you can prioritize this and this and this and this and this in an instant. What do you do first? And so that's what I want AI to help our workforce with. Prioritize what's important. Where do I look first to change the things that's got to be changed? The AI also will help enhance our learning and development. It's this, and I want the same program to run all of it. So when you think about learning and development, you have anybody's having a problem with attaining, getting to come in through the door and retaining the new workforce that's replacing your retirees, right? And so a couple of hands going up. I think a lot of us are in that boat. McDonald's, I mean, everybody is in this boat. Learning and development's always been something that we've done very well, and we were proud of that. But AI can help solve some of these problems. For instance, if you come in and you're a level 2 technician and you want to become, a level 3 or a level 4, you want to go into operator level 1, then there's a pathway for you to go. This program will learn who you are, and it will learn your strengths and your weaknesses, and it will help you if you need help a little bit more over here on certain operational issues. Then it gives you more learning to go over here in a different way, so that it's a little bit easier for you to learn and get it, and then it catches you back up. So helping on the learning and development thing is a big deal for us. And then I say point solutions. Sometimes we have applications. Sometimes they are AI applications, and sometimes they're just computer applications that run certain parts of a facility. And I call that a point solution, right? And so if you have these point solutions in your facility, you have one here and one here and one here. Well, now I got 50 point solutions that are all made by different people that have to be sustained all the way through their life cycle, so with updates, and it's a lot to take care of, right? And so when you have this AI brain, that becomes the orchestrator of these point solutions. It takes the data from the point solutions and helps run the whole facility. And that's also tied in with your employee. That's also tied in with leadership. So that's a big thing that we're working on. And then the real-time visibility to everybody to make transparent what's going on in this facility, on this particular line, this manufacturing line, this particular paper line, or what's going on with marketing, what's going on. This gives leadership, that gives everybody in the organization transparency as to what's going on. You've got one mill that's going to be closing down for 2 weeks because there's a problem. They have to go change out some big thing. How does that affect everybody else? Right now, nobody knew. Until they got the work order. It's like, okay, we're going to have to add another shift, and everybody's going to still have to work overtime because we have to pick up the slack from some of these other facilities. Now everybody gets to plan ahead because everybody knows it's not siloed anymore. Anybody else have in the past silo issues? So we did too, and this is one of the things that we were working on. So anyway, that's pretty much all I had to talk about. I'm looking forward to being on the panel. Thank you very much.